It is for us to bring out the evidence. It's not just going to be enough to say, I have my reservations with the Federal Executive Cabinet. I have my reservations for some of the people that are there. But it is our own responsibility to bring out those evidence and say, there's a need for you to follow up on this. It is not just going to be enough to say, go and probe your own campaign funds. We need to also start assisting in bringing out some of those facts, evidence, to the extent that we can challenge them. As far as I'm concerned, like I said, it's about a class issue, it's about the ruling elite, and for us, we must use the master's tool to destroy the house. So, if the ruling party is currently having most of its victims in those who were in office last, in the previous regime, I have no reservation. As far as I'm concerned, we have just two enemies within this country, and as much as we can destroy one to get to the other, I have no problem. So, if we can use the existing institution, the existing law, and if the previous regime has succeeded, the charges against Saraki before the Code of Conduct Bureau were not just crimes committed even under this last regime. These were crimes committed as far back as 2011. But no, they are already in court. But the previous regime failed to prosecute that. So if the previous regime has succeeded in prosecuting the case of Saraki before the Code of Conduct Tribunal, we wouldn't be having him as Senate president now. Because the failure of that regime created a whole gamut of accused.
Sir, let me come to Mr. Naji. When he says, if the previous regime, does it have to be, each time a government comes in, a new set of cases come up? Or are we supposed to have institutions that should focus on dealing with matters?
You know, it appears you are a prophet. That is the only way to describe this question. Because what I have been hammering on is an independent system devoid of the tenor, tone, and texture of leadership of the time, which is transient, that will sustain a culture that will throw up those people who are inimical to society on account of the way they have used the national patrimony, or in fact abused the process or due process, as the case may be, to ingratiate themselves or another group of people that they favor. That is my own position. And the way we are going now, any day you come to a family and you overhear the mother telling the children who are asking for food that because your father has not returned, you cannot have lunch. It's a very disorganized family. That means the man does not take care of the family, or the family must wait until he is back. He does not plan. So when people in government begin to sing like a choir, that it is by the grace, the gratuitous dispositions of the leader who has graciously allowed this thing to, it means that we are in total mess and confusion. We need to begin to build institutions that are independent of individuals. Individuals are transient elements in a gamut called society. Society has eternal life. Human beings don't. So, if we have systems that can throw up, and the individuals can build that system. So, that's why I'm insisting.
But that's where the leader comes in.
Yes, that's why I'm insisting that this president has the goodwill. Let him not liquidate it. But that goodwill alone, good intentions don't put food on the table. The goodwill must be translated by his lieutenants who have the intellectual endowment and knowledge to download the vision of the leader, mesh it with the goodwill that he enjoys now, to deliver some pains that will ultimately lead to pleasure. If you're on a patient is on the operating table, the pain he goes through is the hope that he will get well. The woman who carries pregnancy, we know pot-bellied men, how they struggle with life. If a woman carries this pregnancy for 9 months, it is in the hope that when God permits her, she has safe delivery. she would have procured a future in which at her old age, perhaps, people or some people will take care of her and society will be better for it.
No.
So what we are emphasizing here, me personally, Chimanaji, is that the process must be established that is rooted in scientific findings so that it will not be a nullity. All the jactitations going on.
Professor Wasai, we hope you're still there. Institutions, building institutions, research will have to come in. Scientific thoughts and planning would have to come in here. Even technology. Do we have that in place? Or what are we doing about this?
Now, I agree absolutely that we need to build institutions. One of the problems of African states is with weak institutions. Weak justice systems, weak judiciary, weak law enforcement agencies, and all that. That's a major problem. The second thing, so I agree that we need to strengthen those institutions. But one of the key steps to strengthening institutions is also to appoint the right kinds of people to lead them. If you don't appoint the right kind of people to lead institutions, they will further weaken those institutions. So, yes, I agree that President Buhari symbolizes the right kind of leadership that we need. But his character must be replicated as much as possible across state institutions. Otherwise, you have one weak link or more than one weak link. It slows down any crusade with an anti-corruption agenda. Secondly, let me quickly say that one of the things that the Presidential Advisory Committee is doing is actually institution strengthening. We're not looking at the individuals, because individuals will go. If institutions are strengthened, if you have someone who is too strong, who is overbearing, the strength of the institution will diminish autocratic tendencies. If you have someone who is too weak, the strength of the institution will support a weak leader. So, but you know, it takes time to build strong institutions. And there are other things that go with building strong institutions. If you take anti-corruption agencies, for example, besides having the right kind of people leading them, you need to fund them adequately. Okay? You need to make sure that you insulate them from political interference. You need to make sure that the right kind of operators who have capacity are employed in those institutions. Now, over the years, Nigeria has not been using this sort of template to build critical institutions. So if you put weak people, or you put the right kind of people, but you don't allow them to employ the right kind of people, then you still don't have the kind of institution that you want. So hopefully we'll be able to achieve this sort of strengthening and reforms that will enable our institutions to stand. Let me quickly say something about the gentleman who said that you cannot fight corruption through the legal process only. Yes, I agree that the legal process alone is not all that it takes to fight corruption, but it is key to fighting corruption. Now, one of the things that we find is that anti-corruption agencies are securing convictions of ordinary Nigerians, in the hundreds. But they have been unable to secure convictions of politically exposed persons and influential people. Now, if you are able to make examples, you allow the legal process to work, and you are able to secure convictions, that itself will add a radiating effect on society. That's number one. Number two, I agree totally that we need to build a critical mass. Because if the citizens have become so lethargic and will not challenge their own government, and will not challenge impunity, and will not challenge breaches to the rule of law, then we are very far from where we're going. So this is not a government thing alone. So the citizens need to play their own role. And that takes me to the media. The media also must play its own role. I said it. You know, one of the things that is coming out now, clearly, is that a section of the media have been compromised by Jasuki Gate. So that puts in context the kinds of things probably and positions you see that they are taking. Instead of fighting the cause of the people and trying to build up the state and the system, they take partisan positions. Now, if they take partisan position, it has a root. So clearly, we need a balance. We need a vibrant citizenship. We need a vibrant civil society sector. We need independent media. We must do everything that we can to support the emergence of an independent, non-partisan media, then of course you need a responsive government. Now if you are able to have all of this, the crusade against corruption is going to last the distance, and it will not be something for the government.
Prof,
Finally, on this issue,
before you finalize, Prof, we'll just have to tie this in because it has to do with building the institutions you talked about. What about the question of the laws? When you say protecting the institution needs to be protected from political influence, from financial influence, so to speak, you'll be looking at issues about laws, you'll be looking at recruitment process and techniques or method strategies to protect these institutions. How can we achieve this? Can we do that now in the middle of this, in quote, fight?
Definitely. One of the things I've said is, for example, financial autonomy. Then security of tenure. If you are heading an anti-corruption agency and you can be removed at will, you are going to pander to the will of the political leadership. And I think one of you asked the question there that when Laulu made the point that this government had said it was not going to interfere, whether in the past the government had interfered. The answer is yes. Anti-corruption agencies have come out in the public domain to say they also read the mood and the body language of the leadership. And if it turns out that the leadership would rather not have certain things done, they can look for all manner of excuses for not doing it. So it is possible. You can budget adequately for anti-corruption agencies. You can insulate them from interference by giving security of tenure. You can allow them to recruit the right kinds of persons, that will add value to those systems rather than sending them people that they are going to engage. And then create an effective oversight system for them. In other words, if you give them all of these things I've talked about, if they are not performing as they ought to, there must be an oversight mechanism